Would you trust the unseen, while the entire world demands proof, urgency, and noise? Could you stand firm, even when the ground beneath you trembles, when the faces around you demand answers, and every glance feels like a verdict? What if all you have is nothing but silent faith? A hunch no one else understands. After all, what is more powerful, a king's sword, imposing fear and urgency, or the silence of a man who needs to prove nothing, in a time when everyone screams for attention, when haste has replaced reflection, and noise has become the norm? Few still understand the value of staying silent. Even fewer grasp the strength in not reacting, because true mastery does not lie in mastering others, but in mastering oneself. Ancient wisdom knew this, and it still whispers to us today. Wait calmly, observe clearly, speak only when necessary, and even then, with lightness. There is wisdom in waiting, there is strength in surrender, and there is glory in serenity. Today, we'll uncover the Stoic message behind dream interpretation. We'll understand why Daniel chose silence, while everyone else ran frantically for answers, and what this teaches us who also face invisible kings, sudden injustices, agonizing weights, and choices that demand emotional maturity. Stay until the end. If you seek inner strength, self-mastery, and wisdom that withstands trends and time, this channel is your refuge. Here, every story is a pause, every pause a compass. The Babylonian Empire was in turmoil. The palace, once a symbol of order and glory, now vibrated with invisible tension. Soldiers marched, stern faces crossed paths, and in every corridor, the same name was whispered: Nebuchadnezzar, the King of Kings. Feared, unpredictable, authoritarian. But that morning, something was different. The king had not slept, or if he had, what woke him was stronger than any enemy army. A dream, the kind that cannot be explained with words, but weighs on the chest all day. It wasn't just an image, it was an omen, and the omen would not leave the king's soul. The fear of others was in his gaze, but now, the king's fear came from within. He summoned the magicians, the wise men, the enchanters, men trained to decipher omens, voices, stars. But Nebuchadnezzar did not want simple answers. He demanded the impossible. Tell me what I dreamed, and then what it means. A cutting silence fell over the throne room. One of the magicians, pale, answered hesitantly, "O king, no one can do this. No man can know what you saw in your sleep, only the gods, and they do not dwell among mortals." And then, like thunder, the royal decree echoed. All the wise men must die. The sentence had been given. It was as if the king, unable to control his own thoughts, decided to control the lives of others. Fear swept the city like a plague. Men ran, hid, wept. Death came for those who supposedly held knowledge, but now stood empty-handed. And among them was Daniel. But Daniel was different. His wisdom did not come from technique. His confidence was not in books, and his strength did not depend on the king's approval. Daniel heard the sentence, but he did not panic. He did not rush to the palace. He did not beg for mercy. He did not try to appear wiser than he was. He simply asked for time. And that says everything. He asked for time for the unthinkable. Time to do what no one else dared. To stay silent in the face of chaos. While others begged for salvation, Daniel withdrew. Not to hide, but to seek. Not to manipulate, but to understand. He gathered with his own, and in prayer, surrendered. There was no theater, no empty promises, no guarantees, only a deep surrender to something the world cannot see, but the Spirit recognizes. Reveal to us, Lord, what is hidden, for by ourselves we know nothing. Meanwhile, in the palace, the countdown to death continued, but Daniel was not moved by haste, nor by pressure. He moved with calm confidence, an unshakable faith, and rare clarity, knowing that haste is no ally of wisdom. And then, in the silent night, the answer came, not as thunder, not as an apparition, but as an inner revelation, firm, clear, impossible to deny. The dream, the statue, the stone, the kingdoms. Daniel saw it all, and understood, but even then, he did not rush to the throne. He did not shout his victory. He did not turn the gift into a stage. Instead, he gave thanks. He knelt and whispered to the Eternal, "Yours is the wisdom. The mystery has been revealed, but not by my merit. It is by your grace." At dawn, Daniel stood before the king, the same king who had condemned all to death, the the same king who demanded the impossible. And there, in the throne room, between golden columns and motionless soldiers, Daniel spoke calmly, without fear, without arrogance. What you saw, O king, was a great statue, of terrifying appearance, with a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly of bronze, legs of iron, and feet of iron and clay. The king listened, speechless. His gaze transformed. He recognized every detail. Daniel continued, "Then, a stone came, cut out without human hands, and it destroyed the entire statue, and that stone became a great mountain, filling the whole earth." The silence that lingered was not of fear, it was of revelation. Daniel had not only revealed the dream, he had revealed the truth, and sometimes truth does not shout. It disarms, that the prophecy had been spoken. Kingdoms fall, human power is temporary, eternal glory is invisible to the eye but invincible to time. The king, the one who demanded the impossible, now bowed before Daniel. The wise men were spared, and Daniel exalted. But see, he did not glorify himself. He did not claim dominion. He did not lose himself in vanity. He knew the true triumph was conquering himself, his haste, his pride, his fear. It was in silence that he won. It was in surrender that he flourished, and it was in trust that he stood firm, even in the face of death. Daniel proved there is power in serenity, and that the man who rules his soul is stronger than the king who rules nations. Daniel reminds us of a fundamental Stoic principle. Control lies not in events, but in our response to them. The king's dream was merely the trigger. The real earthquake happened inside the men who heard it. Fear, despair, panic, none of these arose from the dream itself, but from how they interpreted what was beyond their control. As Epictetus would say, it's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Daniel understood this. He saw the same crisis as everyone else, but instead of reacting, he reflected. Instead of trying to manipulate the situation, he surrendered to what was essential. While others argued, Daniel stayed silent. While they sought recognition, he sought connection. This is what Seneca would call the power of tranquility in the face of chaos. It's not passivity, but a refined strength, the ability to act only when necessary, and with pure intention. Haste is the disease of the soul, Seneca said. Daniel did not rush. He asked for time, and he used that time not to panic, but to immerse himself in calm. To remind himself that what he truly controlled was his mind, his spirit, his response. That choice, that restraint, is the essence of Stoic virtue. It's the maturity of one who knows impulse is not strength, and that silence is not weakness but self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, external events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And Daniel lived this truth. He did not control the king, nor the sentence, nor the palace's dreams, but he controlled himself, his serenity, his faith, his stance before the abyss. This is what Ecclesiastes would call a quiet spirit in the face of time and judgment. Nothing in him was reactive. Everything was awareness and surrender. He didn't just interpret dreams, he interpreted God's silence and responded with reverence and clarity. Daniel's virtue wasn't just in revealing what was hidden, it was in how he did it, without vanity, without urgency, without a hunger for power. This is the virtue of endurance, not the endurance of pride, but the endurance of maturity. Of one who has learned that the deepest glory is to remain whole, even as everything crumbles. Daniel was exalted, but did not exalt himself. He governed himself, while the king, despite crowns and armies, couldn't even control his own dreams. In the end, it doesn't matter how many kingdoms one rules, if they cannot rule their own soul. The wise man, Epictetus would say, is free because he refuses to be enslaved by emotions, fear, or applause. And that freedom Daniel already carried within. And you, are you living in your own invisible prison? Sometimes it has no bars, but it has deadlines, silences that suffocate you, questions without answers, stealing sleep and direction. Do you feel like you're waiting for something that hasn't come yet? A sign, an answer, a deliverance. Maybe it's in your career, where you give your all, yet still feel invisible. Or in family, where your words are twisted and your intentions misunderstood. Maybe you're tired of having to explain yourself, of trying to convince others of your worth. of justifying something that, deep down, only time can reveal. And in this waiting, this silence, this forced pause, doubt begins to whisper, am I being forgotten? Is this delay a punishment? But what if, like Daniel, you're being prepared? What if this silence that unsettles you is the exact moment your faith is being forged? Because not every absence is abandonment. Not every wait is a delay. Sometimes the pause is protection. Sometimes not now is a fuller yes later. And like Daniel, maybe you're being called to trust, even without understanding. To stop chasing anyone's favor, to refuse the desperation for recognition, but to stand firm in what's essential. Because there are moments in life when all you can do is silence the noise outside to hear what's being spoken within. And there, in that space, amid the chaos, you realize you don't need to be understood immediately. You need to be prepared. Like Daniel, you don't need to shout what you know. You only need to hold fast to what you believe, till the right moment arrives, and it will come. Sometimes the miracle doesn't arrive with fire and thunder. Sometimes it comes on an ordinary night, in a silent dream, in a sudden, quiet certainty born inside you, and the world won't understand where your peace comes from. But you'll know it came from trust, from faith, and from the courage to wait wisely. So I ask you, can you stay silent, even when everyone expects you to prove yourself? Can you trust, even when no one guarantees you anything? Can you be like Daniel and surrender to the unseen, not out of weakness, but out of inner strength? Because perhaps this painful waiting you call a punishment is actually the shortest path to your maturity. And in the right time, what is hidden will be revealed. The wise man doesn't choose the easiest path. He honors the one given to him. Daniel didn't fight for shortcuts. He prepared for the moment. And when it came, he was already great. From within. If this story touched something deep in you, consider following this channel. Here, every narrative is a reminder that the soul has its rhythm, and life has its direction. And perhaps what you lack isn't an answer, but the courage to wait in peace.